Good morning, Bruins, and welcome to the UCLA Alumni Changemakers Summit. Thank you for joining us. The theme of this inaugural summit, Racial Equity at Work, is both timely and urgent. And this group of leaders is uniquely well positioned to make a difference in this area. Many of you are already involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and efforts at your workplace. And all of you are deeply committed to making our institutions and our society a more welcoming place for all. Thank you for all you are doing to create actively anti-racist workplaces where the doors of opportunity are open to everyone. I know this summit will equip you with new ideas, connections, and support as you continue to advocate for change. This work is not easy. It never has been. But it is crucially important to the future of individual people and to our society as a whole. With passionate leaders like you paving the way, I feel hopeful for our future. Thank you, Bruin family. I wish you a productive and insightful summit.
Hello, I'm Anna Spain-Bradley, the Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at UCLA. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's UCLA Alumni Changemakers Summit. Questions about how UCLA and the world can undo centuries, decades-long harms surrounding discrimination, racism, ways in which people treat each other that have no place in our world, couldn't be more valuable to engage in at this time. As someone who does this work every day, I like to think of a foundational principle that means that where people's identity and diversity is valued, where people are seen for who they really are and accepted and celebrated, where inclusion is present, and where violations of civil rights have no place, people experience dignity. And ultimately, that is the goal that we seek for ourselves and for everyone in our world. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.
On behalf of the Bruin family, I want to welcome you to the inaugural Changemaker Summit. My name is D'Artagnan Scorza. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I have the privilege of serving as the president of the UCLA Alumni Association. I'm a double Bruin, class of 2007 and 2013, and I want to thank each of you for joining us today. This summit is a unique opportunity for our alumni to share best practices and lean on one another to thrive and succeed in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice work you all do for your organizations. We have over 150 participants with us and over 30 speakers and volunteers who made our slate of events possible. I also want to thank our Diversity Advisory Committee and our Career Advisory Committee board members for their leadership, as well as our UCLA Alumni Association staff members who brought all of this together. Go Team Alumni. So we're talking about race, and we have to ask ourselves, why should we talk about race? Well, often we don't realize that race is pervasive, and racism is also pervasive. It's woven throughout our social institutions, as well as being embedded within our social and individual consciousness. It saturates us, right? It's found in nearly every aspect of our life and affects all of us in some way. It also juxtaposes our experiences by contrasting them with a sort of personal, social, and our institutional perspective that forces us to live out our lives in ways that might also be constrained, right? Race and racism in this society denotes structural and material constraints that restricts and/or limits both our self-determination and our self-development. But ultimately, we talk about race because it's asserts a relationship between those who have power and those who do not. Racism and other isms are complex and they're emotional. And each of us have developed emotional experiences and developmental experiences that have shaped our belief systems. Either our belief in meritocracy or the importance of individualism, or in some cases, our belief that one racial and/or ethnic group may be superior or inferior to another. We often don't realize even how race or racism plays out in the places we live, in the spaces we occupy, in the communities that we grow up in. But we deal with it because we really need to begin to reimagine our social systems. But in order to do that, we must first acknowledge their colossal and unseen dimensions. And being oblivious about race or racism maintains the disparities that many of our communities face. So if we want to move towards racial equity, which is really what this entire summit is about, we have to think about what a genuinely non-racist society would look like. One in which the distribution of both society's benefits and burdens are not skewed by race. In other words, racial equity is a reality where no one person is more or less likely to experience society's benefits or burdens just because of the color of their skin. And this contrasts with our current state of affairs, in which if you're a person of color, you are more likely to live in poverty, to be in prison, to be pushed out of school, to face employment challenges, or to even experience poor health outcomes like higher rates of diet-related diseases or heart disease or even depression and potentially fatal diseases. Racial equity holds our society to a higher social standard, a higher economic standard, a higher political standard, and demands that we pay attention not just to individual level discrimination, but to our overall social outcomes. So in that regard, we must be anti-racist. And by being anti-racist, we are actively identifying and eliminating racism by changing and challenging systems, as well as the structures, the policies, practices, and attitudes that maintain those systems. We do so that we can redistribute power and resources equitably. Anti-racism is not just about awareness, it's about the ways in which power remains in the hands of the same groups, as well as the ways in which others are disadvantaged by those who are in positions of power and are able to make decisions. So what does that mean for us today, and why are we hosting the summit? Because we hope that it'll help you recognize the role that many of our institutions, that many of our systems play in maintaining structural racism. We hope that it'll help you recommit. And if this is your first time, just commit to changing those systems, to changing those organizational structures, policies, and practices, both private and public. But that it'll also help us co-create solutions with populations that are most affected by adverse outcomes, utilizing a racial equity lens in our decision-making. So as you engage in this weekend summit, take time to reflect upon the ways in which you want to employ racial equity at work. And I invite you, we all invite you to build relationships with one another. Share your stories, and as Paco said, let the learnings leave here. As you start your day, I encourage you to check with yourself and connect with other attendees throughout the day. Check in, see how you're doing, see how you're showing up in the space. I want to thank you for joining us during this very special time, and I look forward to seeing you in our upcoming session. And as always, go Bruins.